All right, now we're good. Now we're good to go.
Cool. You're on mute, Tamar. Look, he definitely talking
Excited. Excited about it too.
Oh, that sucks. I was on mute. My bad. My bad. I was on mute. Just take away what I said. It was good at the moment. I don't but no, go ahead, Kelly. Just jump in.
All right, on. Well, we had a network power hour. Let's see here, a couple weeks back, we had this amazing tribal training where we brought in Pam and Gordon James, and we asked some pressing questions about doing a land acknowledgement and learned a few things. And so my land acknowledgement today is just I want to acknowledge that I'm currently on the land of the Puyallup tribe. They also said for it's really important for everybody, no matter where you are in this meeting, to just take a second, recognize where you're at, and kind of put your heart and your mind there, and make sure that we're acknowledging the people. It can be silently, it can be however you want it to be, but just knowing where we are. And then we're gonna jump right into updates. So that part is done. We have so much going on. Let's see here. We kicked off the Speakers Bureau. Let's see here. I think it was I don't know. Everything's a week ago to me right now, so I'm just gonna be like, it was a week ago. I don't know. It's probably a month ago. But the Speakers Bureau has just recently been launched again. That was amazing. We had a group of there's about 8 of us in there talking about some of the different the areas that we're passionate about and how we can advocate better for that, whether it be meeting with other organizations who are maybe, for instance, pushing initiatives around re-entry. So really putting a group together that when your organization has a new initiative going or you're building something, you can always reach out to the task force and let us help you connect with a quote unquote advisory council that is a mix of people who are involved in the work, obviously people with lived experience as well, and those who are experts in that field, so we can better build out these initiatives so that we're truly utilizing community voice. We will have another meeting coming up towards the end of May. We're going to meet down in the Fife Library. Super grateful to the Pierce County Library System for allowing us to kind of travel around to different libraries to hold these meetings. So if you're interested in the Speakers Bureau, please throw that in the chat as we're recording it. We definitely need some more folks in specific areas. So if you're interested, we're building this all together. We're hoping to bring in some, different, I would say, different people that are able to train us in areas of advocacy. So that we can again be part of advisory councils. We can get up to the Hill in Olympia when they have some new bills on the table, and we can really put our voice into that. So please definitely let me know if you're interested in that. Next update I have is around an event we have coming up on June 5th. It's Avenues to Opportunities, aka Collaboration for a Cause with a different name. This is a resource fair pretty much focused on re-entry. It's going to be great, held off of 19th Street DSHS, like right there on the 19th side. We're taking over the entire parking lot. We have some food trucks coming out to provide up to 300 people with lunch tickets, and then a whole bunch of amazing resources, again, focused around reentry and some other opportunities, everything from legal, housing, employment, uh, resume assistance, all the things will be there. So we'll get a flyer out to the task force for that, but we would love you to share that with your customers, participants, clients, and more, to get some folks down there and get engaged with the community. We'll also have a task force table down there where, again, we're looking for some community voice as we push forward on this reentry initiative. I think was that all I got, Chloe? Was those two things for right now? I mean, there's just so much coming up this year. I'm gonna let Tamar talk a little bit about the lens of equity too, because we'd like to put that out there. We're gonna need some help putting that together, and would love some assistance on that.
Absolutely. So, man, big thing, Lens of Equity coming back February 2025, celebrating through Black History Month. I'm actually very excited about this. For those that experienced the last event, we were over at Clover Park Technical College. This year, we are going for the convention center down in Tacoma and going big with so many different opportunities, a way to talk about this, understand For those that did not experience the Lens of Equity, it is our diversity, equity, acceptability, and inclusion conference. It is where we go deep. We keep this conversation going. So much over the past few years, DEI has honestly just become that buzzword of organizations doing the work. Now, again, I'll say if what I just said hurt you and it hits you, then we can talk about it later. Not at the moment, no disrespect. But that's why you always hear DEAI and the task force. Currently, it's really acknowledging, accepting, taking accountability, the awareness in our ancestry in this work. You cannot be DEI without recognizing everything about the cultures that it is meant to change and remove barriers and boundaries, change policies. It is to support the marginalized community. It has shifted, and it's to make everyone feel comfortable and everyone to feel happy. And, everyone's story is the same and it elevates the same. No, it does not. We can have the same lived experience, but my presence is very different than yours. So let's get it going. It's coming. It's going to be amazing. It's always hard hitting. Let your staff know, let your team know, understand if you got DEI in your verbiage, in your message, on your website, I'm coming for your money. I'm coming for sponsorship. Put your money where your mouth is because I need it. I'm coming for it. So trust me, I'm watching everybody's website. And if you have it on there, understand you're going to get that sponsorship letter from me. And if I don't see no money, I'm coming in person. Let it be known. Keep it real. But it's coming. It's going to be amazing. Also with that, just real quick, we do a lot. We know that. And this year, we're really being more intentional on what we do, how we approach the things that we approach them, and those that are coming to elevate the work that we do even more. So you will see us asking for that support even more. You will be knowing that we're going to ask you to show up. We want you to be able to do those things. We pushed a lot last year, and I understand burnout, but we can't get burnt out if everybody takes their fair shot at what we need to do and how we need to do it. Can't be burnt if everybody takes a chance at it. So a lot of great things come in. Very excited about it. So much more to come. And Chloe, I'm gonna let you do you.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you guys for the updates. Although I do think, Sam, if you're on here, I have like a little document to share if you want to talk about small business. If you're on here, is he on here real quick?
He's not, but I'm gonna talk about it after you go.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good. Okay, so we will circle back to that after our panel. I'm very excited about this. We've got 4 amazing people joining our panel today. As Tamara was saying a little bit earlier, this is all about trades in Pierce County. We want to talk about not just opportunities in the trades, but the barriers that people face when getting into the trades, especially marginalized communities. We want to talk about the work that's being done to break down those barriers and making sure that we can do the work, we can address those issues, and what still needs to be done, because there's definitely a lot of work there and a lot of space there for improvement and just increasing access, because that is just incredibly important. So first of all, I just want to introduce our 4 panelists. You guys can talk a little bit about who you are, what you do. Tamara, is there another?
Yes, just a favor for anybody that is not on the panel. I hate to do it, but please turn your camera off. Go to your viewing gallery and hide non-participants with video. That way you actually know who's actually speaking, because that's all that it's going to show. So again, please turn your cameras off unless you are on the panel. And in your settings, go to hide non-video participants. That way we can actually just highlight who's actually on this panel. Thank you guys so much. Go ahead, Chloe, do your thing.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for adding that. Yeah, so I just wanted to introduce our panelists. You guys can say a little bit about yourselves. We've got some questions on our end, but of course I'm going to be monitoring the chat. So if you guys have questions throughout, I'm going to be keeping an eye on that so we can answer those. There's going to be a Q&A session at the end as well. So let's start off with Nate Laver. Would you like to share a little bit about yourself?
Great. Thank you, Chloe. And yeah, when Tamara came at me in DC, it was full on and awesome. conversation. And I was like, sure, May 1st. What else am I doing? What better way to celebrate International Workers' Day, where we remember the folks that were fighting for an 8-hour workday over 100 years ago at the Haymarket Square in Chicago, and their lives that were lost during that time, just for an 8-hour workday. So, you know, the more things change, the more they stay the same, because that's some of the conversations we're having today too. I'm currently the Secretary Treasurer of the Pierce County Central Labor Council. And what's that mean? That we're a federation of 97 different organizations that represent more than 42,000 working men, women, and folks here in Pierce County. And we work to change the conversation around working conditions and wages and benefits, to make sure that every worker is treated with dignity and respect, that they wake up in the morning and come home in the same condition that they left out the door. And we fight for inclusion, and you know, we do a lot of work around these parts. So that's what you got for me.
Thank you. Next up, we have Shauna Peshek. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Didn't want to pull a Tamar and talk with the mic off. So Shana Peshek, Executive Director of the Machinist Institute. We do registered apprenticeship programs, pre-apprenticeship, and professional development across the state of Washington. We have a few local training centers, and then two 40-foot training trailers that we can take out to the rural areas and do training with those as well. And we're moving into Oregon and California. We also have gone the route of opening a childcare center, which is something I'll talk about later. But we do really design our programs from the perspective of a student, and rely heavily on community-based organizations and their expertise as trusted messengers to help us with that access piece and retention and support. So I love seeing the audience here, the diverse organizations and the representation, because it does take a village, and we should not be working in silos, and we should recognize the expertise and support each other's organizations for the good of the student. And also the quality job definition definitely is, of course, pay, but a whole bunch of other things too that people are looking for, especially the ability to visualize, how am I going to get to the next step? How do I advance in my career? And so helping them understand that and seeing the vision for that, I think, is also part of a quality job.
Of course. Well, thank you. Next up, we have Jody Lario.
I get to follow the amazing Shana Peshek. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. It's really awesome to see so many familiar faces that I've gotten to know over the past few years. So I have about 10 years of construction management background, starting from scratch, moving my way up with absolutely no experience in construction, no college, and have grown to be a construction company owner. Most recently, I have taken a position with Washington State Building Construction Trades Council as an apprenticeship navigator, and we are working on a grant to remove obstacles and barriers to those typically underserved communities that wish to enter the building trades. And so we've been working diligently for the last couple of months, getting to know community partners and building relationships with the different locals to understand the needs of bringing on people, what their onboarding processes look like, what their out of work list looks like, what their needs are, and hope to act as that bridge between our community clients that want to enter the building trades and be that person. As Tamar said, you used to have to know someone, you used to have to have an uncle, a dad, a brother, somebody already in the trades. It's not the case anymore. We're here to help connect community to the actual hiring bodies, the locals, and really excited to do that work. I'm also the outreach chair for RPAC, which is the Regional Pre-Apprenticeship Collaboration of Puget Sound. And so very connected to pre-apprenticeship programs, apprenticeship providers, educators, community resource providers. And so that's a great group. This is an exciting group. This is my second meeting, and I absolutely love the energy. You guys pump me up. I'm so excited to be here, and to do the work that we're all doing and to get to know many more of our community providers.
Well, thank you, and it's great to have you here. And then we also have Mina Long.
Morning, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. So I am the Strategic Programs Manager at the Washington State Building and Construction Trades Council. My main, I do an amalgam of things, right? But my main task is apprenticeship infrastructure and supporting our apprenticeship programs with recruitment and retention. As Jody mentioned, we currently have a grant that is working on serving marginalized folks that have a lot of barriers to accessing apprenticeship and living wage jobs, and that is a huge passion of mine. And I just want to share a couple of things that have kind of shaped and molded the advocate that I am today, and really helped get me into this position that I feel really blessed to be in, so that I can serve my community and my brothers and sisters in the trades. And that is, I am a track graduate, so the pre-apprenticeship inside the women's prison. That's how I found my path to the trades. And I am now a journeyman ironworker. And now I'm here. So I'm really excited to be here and be connected with all of you and do this amazing work.
Well, thank you, Mina. I'm really happy that you're able to be a part of the panel today, and that we have all four of you on board. It's very exciting. I'm really interested in talking to you and learning more. I suppose in terms of our questions, and again, if anybody has any questions, you can put that in the chat as well. Is just on barriers about getting into the trades. I know that there's a lot of conversations about, like, there are so many opportunities within the trades, which is so true, but in terms of how we can actually get people into them, or that kind of starting line, or how you even begin. So I suppose my starting question is, what are some of those prevailing barriers that exist within the trades, especially for marginalized groups? How do those manifest? I suppose that question is for all of you.
I can say one thing that I've been hearing a lot at recent career events and high school events that I've gone to is, one, they just don't know any go down, and they don't know exactly what our physical labor. And so many people are not even aware of what you can do in a trade role.
I think an interesting exercise we did a few years ago, I worked with Erin Fraser, who's now also at the Building Trades, but we went through with 5 different registered apprenticeship programs and mapped every single step and thing that was necessary to get into the program, all the way from, do you fill out the application in paper and have to go to the hall and turn it in by hand? And is that a process that could be changed because people might be working not a great job, and that precludes them from getting in? When do they have to pay union dues? When does the medical kick in? Like, every single thing, what tests they have to pass. And it was really interesting to see the difference. And also the different apprenticeship programs were like, wow, you do that? We hadn't thought of that. And so it ended up being kind of this conversation where the apprenticeship programs could also feel what it would be like to try to have to figure out how to get into each separate one. And I think that's why it's so hard for career counselors to be able to speak to it, because it's not the easy explanation, because each one's different. And so that was kind of a really interesting exercise. And Erin and I have the whole spreadsheet somewhere, but getting more individuals to understand that in the career exploration phase, this is really an opportunity for students to figure out, do some research. You know, if you're afraid of heights, then you probably don't want to apply at a job where you're going to have to be on the top of bridges, and look at how to get into the different trades. So I usually try to turn the counselors on to assigning that as an assignment for students. And then also looking at, are there gatekeepers, who is accepting the applications that might have some bias and maybe not push some through. I mean, it's some really process mapping kind of exercises for the programs to see, do we have any barriers that maybe are there for no reason and it's the way we've always done it and haven't, thought about it. And then getting the younger, and veterans and women and doing, outreach with people they can relate to, and being intentional about that so that they can see themselves in that role and really relate to whoever is talking about it. We have our apprentices talk. Our veteran goes out to what's the word? The base. That's a very easy word. And talks there. And so being intentional about that, but it is a struggle. And I think raising the culture of registered apprenticeship to be something that is highly valuable in the eyes of their parents, of their community, of their friends, and understanding that it opens doors. It's not an either or. So for everybody to kind of share the same language around this educational modality and all of the great things it can lead to in a career. It's not just this 4 years and that's it. It's all the doors that opens, and being able to share that with individuals, I think, is valuable. However, we can celebrate that and make people aware, will help us all out. So I know it's really hard. We're all facing the same struggles with how to recruit and support people, but the more we understand and plan for what the barriers are, I think the better off we can all be.
I read this question a little differently, if that's okay, because I know, barriers to entering the trades there are so many barriers. And like Shana mentioned, something as simple as allowing someone to fill out an application online, like someone who's a single parent in a rural community who's working hard, they can't miss a day of work just to fill out an application. So, just something as simple as breaking down that barrier, things like that are super important. But I looked at this question. I've been taking a more critical look lately at, what happens to folks after we get them in, because we can have a open door policy all day long. But, when you get onto construction sites, every site, every crew has its own culture. So, that could change from day to day, week to week, month to month. And I look at barriers as, discrimination, harassment, workplace violence. And violence doesn't just have to be physical. It can be racist comments, sexist jokes, things like that too. So, and these things are, important to look at because they lead to economic harm, psychological harm, physical harm, and lack of retention, because who wants to stay in an environment that is not culturally supportive of every single person? So that's kind of how I looked at that question.
I think, those are huge, huge barriers as well. It's that lack of access, lack of awareness piece, but also when people get into that space, is it actually accessible? Is it welcoming long term? Is it something that's like, okay, yes, I see a career out of this? Because of course, if somebody enters that space and they're not welcome, they're not supported, there's very little incentive to stay in that kind of environment for anybody in any field. It's definitely something that needs to be talked about. I'm thinking, and this kind of goes into that about addressing those barriers. I mean, this can kind of go both in the workplace and then also getting people into the trades, so that awareness piece of it. And this question is for all of you again, can you share any examples of successful initiatives or strategies that you've had or that you found to remove those barriers, increase access, and both before and after somebody gets into the trades, to make that transition easier, to help support people. I know that you just mentioned that kind of that mapping kind of activity, which seems really, really great. I just want to bounce back at that and see what you've seen that's been successful.
Some of the things that we have done, first of all, just to go back, like this, dealing with human beings should be a major part of the K-12 education the whole time, because it's really can be difficult in the trades, but it's also terrible everywhere else. Like people are, could just be very hard to interact with at times, and the harassment and discrimination, teaching people the tools and how to get help for that stuff is really important. And also how to negotiate for yourself. Like, that's another hard skill set that I think could be taught. And how we work with employers as a no tolerance. And it can be really difficult conversations, but we have to support our students and apprentices and work everything we can do to change that culture. We hired a full-time support services for our students person. She is not a person who has any authority. She's not an employer. She's not an instructor. She can build that trust and that rapport with our apprentices and pre-apprentices, and they can feel comfortable to her with a problem that they might not want to go to their supervisor or their instructor. And she does proactive meetings with the students to find out if there's anything going on in their lives that might become a challenge for them to continue their pathway. So whether it's childcare, transportation, maybe they need tutoring. I mean, we discovered a student who really had a learning disability, and she was able to connect them. He didn't even really understand it himself. So to get help with whatever those things are before it becomes a snowball and you don't know what's going on in their life and then they're just gone. So I think that's one way. And then I can talk more about the childcare, but I don't know if you want me to do that right now or later on.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's something we can definitely dive into. Have you, in terms of the succession initiative, have you yeah, let's dive into it. Why not?
I don't want to take time away from the rest of the panelists because they all have very amazing insights also.
Yeah, well, you were here. Let's go back to our other panelists to talk a little bit about those initiatives, and then we can circle back on childcare if that works. So, so Nathan, Jody, what have you found that you've seen that's been successful?
One of the things is counting and looking at where we're at. I know that in the building trades, about 10 years ago, they realized at the national level, this is a problem. We're excluding workers. We're excluding a huge portion of the workforce. And, it's a bit ironic too, because many of the large trade unions started as places for immigrants and refugees to come together to exercise power because they're being exploited on the job sites, right? The laborers formed in 1903 under those, it was the Irish and the Italian immigrants that they're like, yeah, we're done with this. We're going to come together and improve the working conditions here. And over time, as they developed power and things like that, it was started to be used to exclude other folks, and it's been a problem. And when leadership and people start to recognize that and start to actually acknowledge that it's a problem, then you can make steps to change it. And I think we've seen that. We're by far not anywhere near where we need to be. And you just look at the demographic numbers of any job site, and that's proved to point. Stephanie brought up in the chat about some of the stuff her husband puts up with on job sites. That's horrible. That's horrible. And we can do better. And it's making that generational shift and making that happen. To highlight, one of the areas that can be done is the owners on projects is making sure that they're bringing in the proper mix of not just the diverse contracting groups, but also the workforce as well. Tacoma Public Schools is doing a great job of bringing folks on, and even making sure that they're bringing apprentices on to those job sites. In the last year, they of all their labor hours, 16% of those hours have been apprenticeship utilized, and that's before some of the state law changes has gone on. And they're also making sure that they're bringing on board contractors and subcontractors that are diverse and minority and women-owned businesses. And it's not easy to do. They had to put their foot down and say, this is how it's going to be. And there's complications. The system with I-200 is set up against doing some of these things. So you have to rely on disparity studies and other factors to help hit these numbers. But it's possible. It's hard because it's been made hard by the folks that have the power. But there's ways around it, and where there are some, that's an example. Another one that comes to mind in the registered pre-apprenticeship realm here in Tacoma is the Palmer Pathways program. They are intent on, it's very much intentional. They bring in marginalized youth into this program, youth being 18 to 28, I believe is their target. And they see a 97% placement rate from registered pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship readiness program into a bona fide apprentice program. Sister Long, we get some folks that go into the ironworkers off that, and it's incredible how it changes their lives. And they supply, like Shane was saying, some of those wraparound services. They need to help with their driver's license. They're going to find a way to get them their driver's license so they can get there. They can do the 6-week program, and then they have a pathway right in there. And it's not just life-changing, but it breaks cycles of poverty and impoverishment within our community. And it's amazing to watch.
Since you opened the door for me to talk about ironworkers, I represent so many amazing crafts in the state. And so, and they all have their own unique ways of breaking down barriers. Some are working under grants that target marginalized people for opportunity. And ironworkers are an example. 86 and 29 both currently have separate grants where they're able to put those folks out for their pre-apprenticeship. It's a 4-week pre-apprenticeship. And, you know, when you live 4 hours away, and again, single parent or whatever your circumstances are, how can you come for 4 weeks to attain that opportunity? It's just not really possible. And so having an opportunity that's breaking down that major barrier is super important. And then I was actually just at my union hall the other day to capture a couple of folks for our Constructive Career Initiative grant who are Washington residents. And they had mentioned, you know, maybe gas cards to get them through those first couple of paychecks, you know, those wraparound services. And I had mentioned it to the apprenticeship coordinator. He said, oh, well, if, you know, once they're done with this class, they're each going to get 2 gas cards just for graduating and participating. And so I was like, oh, okay. So then that opens up our grant for any other services they might need. And so it's just it is so heartwarming to see the love and support that's going into, you know, serving these people. It's so important. But I also wanted to give credence to, you know, we need really macro level systemic change. And I don't think that anybody on this Zoom doesn't realize that, right? But the grassroots favorite ways to reach people, whether that's, you know, starting a sisters committee or some sort of caucus, or even just NAAA meetings to reach folks that, you know, are struggling with specific issues. Someone mentioned in the chat DOC and currently and formerly incarcerated. You know, there's so many different populations of people that need like targeted support, because I think Tamar had mentioned, you know, our experiences might be the same, but our presence isn't the same. And so, you know, I just think the grassroots style, checking in with people, making sure that they're okay, making sure that they're supported is really important for breaking down those barriers as well.
A couple can I address a couple of things real quick too? As far as programs that are working, somebody had mentioned in the chat about people that have criminal records and needing change. I do want to share that the laborers were just approved to not require driver's licenses anymore. So that's pretty exciting. They will still need a form of ID, so state ID, passport, whatever, but they do not need to have a driver's license to be part of the laborers, which is pretty big for those that are dealing with licensing issues. That is really exciting. And I think that was just approved last week at the state meeting. So they are certainly welcome. What I will share is that every local that I have talked to in the last 2 months is very open to having people and to helping people that have incarceration histories, reentry candidates, anything. I know there's many of them that are going out and connecting directly with CTAP and TRAC, which are the pre-apprenticeships that Minna mentioned that are happening while they're incarcerated, and working with them to get them right into positions. But also there's a lot of groups that are working to help bridge that gap, like Freedom Project and Cassandra Banks Foundation, that are bridging and providing opportunities and giving those wraparound services. The grant that I'm on that Minna mentioned, we have wraparound services to help provide additional support and funding and gas cards and whatnot to help anybody. And we really have been working with the correctional industries and the reentry groups, really make it easier for that group to get these good jobs that we're all talking about, but making sure that they're emotionally ready, that they have the foundational skills they need to be successful, because just getting them there is not enough, right? Like what Minna said, like they have to be able to stay in these positions. And that's part of what our work is too. It's not just getting them hired in, it's getting them to stay in and be successful.
I think one thing I learned also is that it's very easy to make assumptions and think that you're putting supports in place that would be doing good, and then find out maybe it had unintended consequences. So for our pre-apprenticeship, we work with the community-based organizations for them to recruit and support students, but also to help design our program. So when we worked with the refugee immigrant community, they had us plan for prayer time while they were in training for culturally relevant food choices. And we were going to give them some financial support, but didn't realize that that would have potentially made the rest of their family ineligible for other benefits. So relying on the community-based organizations you're working with to tell you what's needed in there, because even if I thought we were going to do good, it could have done harm, and letting them design it, not just saying, hey, we're coming into your community, here's what we have, send us students, and being willing to kind of flex it. Same thing with our trailer. Christina Riley is leading an amazing project to set up our mobile training trailer on the Puyallup tribe and offer our pre-apprenticeship there with connection to some potential jobs in the Port of Tacoma. And so letting them kind of, all these communities tell us what they need, and not for me not to go in there and assume I know all of the pieces that I need to give the students, has been amazing for the success of the students, and just letting them kind of design that for us.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it works at least like with one of my next questions. It kind of circles back to the conversation around re-entry, about I'm curious, do you have any thoughts on how we can partner with DOC or the courts to help guide those who are coming out of the justice system into trade jobs?
I can share some of the stuff that we've been working on with our grant program, is getting out to some of the different prisons. I've been to Purdy. Minna has a meeting coming up at South Fork, I believe, soon, to actually meet with CTAP and TRAC instructors and providers to get to know them, get to know some of their current clients. I'm on the statewide reentry navigators call, and so connecting with those providers that the prison system actually has through DOC that are helping their soon to be releasing folks get connected to careers. And so I've partnered with them already, and we just had our first meeting, and from that I'll be going out to Progress House, which is the work release program, and getting to meet with clients there to share what we're doing and what community resources they have, and to connect them to the different locals that they might be interested in joining. And I do believe you can go to CTAP and track graduations, and there recently was a graduation and they didn't have anybody attend. And so that's pretty demoralizing for a group that's worked really hard to get their lives back on track, and to have access and to network and meet with people once they get out that can help them land softly and safely. So find out about those if they're happening, and if you're eligible to go, I would definitely recommend that. And then there are a lot of programs that are supporting, like Freedom Project and Cassandra Banks. Justice Way Forward, I think, is another one. But there's a lot of those that are working directly with justice involved people that need additional support.
Maybe Nate can speak to this also, but one of the ways apprenticeship is a job. So we need the employers to be open and hiring and supporting these hires. And I don't know if there's any areas that have apprenticeship utilization requirements for, I know there's women and people of color, but justice involved. Maybe we can start expanding, because it doesn't seem like most employers come to the table willing to do everything we ask them and we want them to do, and that they should be responsible for doing. And oftentimes once they hire someone, they're like, oh, everything I thought about this was wrong, and now I'll be open to it. But usually you have to start with requiring things.
Can I touch on that too? So some of my things I'd like to see in my lifetime, before I'm gone, is like Shayna said, opening up opportunities for, so in my role and in a lot of our roles, one of our target populations is currently informally incarcerated, and to give them apprenticeship opportunity. However, once they're in, they are still alienated from full participation, because there are still archaic laws on the books that don't allow them to hold certain leadership and advocacy positions in the union. They are not allowed on certain job sites for life. And all they're trying to do is feed their families. And so while we're advocating to give these people opportunities in apprenticeship, I strongly believe we should also be advocating for them to have the ability to fully participate in their unions and in their apprenticeships. And that means leadership positions, job sites, and I'm not an expert in this and I don't have statistics, but there are certain populations of people that are over incarcerated in this country, and those are also our target population. So just food for thought. It's something I think about all the time, though.
Sheena just mentioned something about apprenticeships and starting with jobs, and it's important that the not just the employers be open to these things, but also that the owners of the projects are there, right? And we can start with the Build Back Better agenda, the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS Act, the IIJA, which I can't remember what all those letters mean right now. And as that money's coming to our state and our local level, be sure, or even when we're passing local bonds, that we're putting in those apprenticeship requirements, that we're putting in those local hire requirements, and that we're prioritizing hiring out of zip codes that have been historically redlined. And we can prove that with a disparity study that goes back to how complicated this is under I-200, right? But make sure that we have those places and spaces to have those jobs happen, because if we don't have a job for folks who don't have an apprenticeship, and it's always I think a good reminder that it starts with the job, and that day one they're making in some contracts 60% of the journeyman's rate, and day one they're contributing to a lifelong career pension. And they have access to health care, and that just depends on the waiting period on their contract as well. But these are incredible opportunities for folks that are life-changing. And we're in a great place in Washington State, being the third most union-dense state. We have a lot of opportunities for apprenticeships and quality stability for folks wherever they're at in life to enter in them.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys. I'm seeing one question in the chat here, is how we can support people who have disabilities. A question from Josh Resnick. One of the biggest hurdles is a person who is injured on the job or has a disability fall into this pitfall that they're unable to work because there is a stigma surrounding about their disabilities. How can we support them in the trades? Anybody can start off with that.
I was looking for it so I could read it. I'm kind of a visual person.
Oh, it's okay.
This is something. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, this is something. I'm a single mom to 13-year-old twin boys who are both autistic and in special education. And you know, I think as they're getting older, they're going to be 18 before I know it. And you know, I draw connections in my daily life. You know, we have instructors at my union hall who have learning disabilities, who have autism. And they are some of the smartest, most amazing workers. And so I think that, you know, people are often placed in a box when they have a disability, or if they're in special education, they're often isolated. And I think that it's important to, when we go into schools and access schools for you know, the trades, I think it's important to make sure that those folks are getting access as well. Because again, when you discount anybody, you're missing out on talent and opportunity. And so that's just something I've been thinking about lately. But
yeah, and I think also this is sometimes can be the assumption piece. Like if we have a student in our class that is really not doing well, I don't think he ever was had anybody explore the idea that he had some learning challenges, and so he just didn't do well. Like he just was on his own, didn't do well in high school, and having somebody that can help, you know, get them that support they need to be successful. Like there's, you know, he was showing up as a unengaged, not doing what he should be doing, and kind of isolated student that just seemed like, you know, he's not right for the program. He's not engaged in this, when really there was this whole other challenge he was facing that he didn't even, I don't think, had self-identified. And then, yeah, I think Yvette put in the chat a little bit more about the actual structure and requirements of the apprenticeships, and what, depending on what disability is, how much, you know, opportunity there is.
yeah, if it's something as simple as, you know, I mean, I look at even just learning styles. I've taught orientations at my union hall, and I've been involved in my apprenticeship a lot. I serve on the JTC board, and I mentor a lot of apprentices. And sometimes it's just a matter of, you know, what's their learning style? You know, something as simple as that, and it's going to be different for everybody. And one person's not going to understand something the same as everybody else. And so with a disability, you know, like being dyslexic or something like that, you know, how can we reach that person and give them that extra, you know, support that they need? And I think that if we have the ability to do that, we should.
And how to operate in this era, like digital literacy. You know, if you're injured on the tools and now, you know, are going to have to take some online classes or something. We ran a digital literacy class for people in the trades that were, you know, journey level. And I thought it was too basic, like how to turn on a computer and send an email, and it wasn't. So, you know, thinking about all of those kind of things that they're going to need to have to do.
I think I'm looking at the chat, and it was kind of exactly what I was thinking too, is the reasonable accommodation conversation. And you have your union group who kind of is a manager of our folks, right? And then we also have the employer, which is another body that actually hires the people. And so who makes a decision of what reasonable accommodations are when you have two different kind of governing bodies over these people and they may not agree with each other. And I just recently heard a story about an apprentice who had a reasonable accommodation and was allowed to bring their service animal and kept the animal in the vehicle, and the local was okay with it, the employer was okay with it, but another one wanted to bring their service animal onto the job site. And so then there's safety conversations and there's a lot of different conversations. So I think there is opportunity for advocacy and for training and education and what is reasonable accommodation, and do we have realistic expectations on all three sides, right? The person, the employer, and the local, that we can make a reasonable accommodation, and what is the cost associated and what are kind of the impacts on others that there might be. So I think there's definitely opportunity in that to be more equitable to everybody.
Kelly just put up a question in the chat, if it's okay to transition to that one. Is that she's asks, to help change the narrative in high school that a career in trades is not a last chance option. And when this question comes up, and it always comes up, just like childcare always comes up when we talk about these things, right? It's not just about changing the narrative in high school. It's about changing it from K through 16, right? It's the dignity of a hard day's work and getting a good paycheck. That's what we all strive for. And the building trades is not a last chance career. It should be in the top two, right? It starts even in kindergarten. When you think about they do a career day in kindergarten, who shows up? Lawyers, doctors, police officer, and the firefighter. And why is that? Because they all have free time. Because everybody else that's bagging groceries and working on job sites, they're all out working, and they don't have the time to be able to come in. Oh, and the insurance guy comes in, and everybody just thinks that's weird because trying to explain insurance to a kindergartner. But what if we change that script and we were able to have a conversation where a flagger shows up to a classroom of kindergartners, full high vis, and has a stop sign? Now this person has the power to stop vehicles, and suddenly you have a different conversation there. And then kind of wash, rinse, and repeat throughout the whole thing. And it's part of these conversations. It's all y'all out there that are listening to this and having that conversation in your spaces, that there's dignity in trades careers. And it's super important that we treat everybody who works, whether it's an attorney, an airline pilot, a janitor, or a cement mason, all with the same amount of respect, because we're all just trying to do the same thing. We're trying to all just earn a living so we can have a life and go have ice cream on Saturday at 2:00, right? So it's changing that narrative and how we present in the schools.
I want to say that I've experienced, without being too specific, experienced some resistance with when I've had opportunity to speak to elementary or middle school students, because we are all spread so thin, and it's what is going to have the most immediate result, right? That's kind of in the forefront of folks' minds, and fair enough, I guess. But when it comes to planting seeds for a future generation and all the work that's coming up, I mean, a kindergartner should have the opportunity to know about that, and not just because their mom or dad is a flagger, but because someone came and talked to them and showed them their tools and kind of, just planted that seed. I mean, I remember some things from kindergarten. So, and nobody who was a flagger came and talked to me, but I would remember that if I can remember some of the other things. And so, planting those seeds really early is very worth it. But another thing is, someone had touched on how it's hard to reach folks. It's hard sometimes to get access. School counselors aren't handing out trades pamphlets or handing out college pamphlets, right? And they're taking, career tests that gear them towards things other than construction. But offering tours of your apprenticeship or your pre-apprenticeship, if they have an opportunity to come and tour. I know There are some pre-apprenticeship classes like ANEW that'll potentially come and tour, but offering that to schools, let them come and try welding or whatever it is you do, instead of us having to go visit 100 schools a year, invite them to you, if possible.
I think also systemically pushing for the hands-on and putting that into the curriculum so that, even at early ages, they can, be pounding on stuff or build something out of Legos and show them what building something is. There's a national certifying organization called NC3, and I think one of those developed this whole curriculum for elementary school that was on introducing them to building and construction and had, safe things to work with. But getting them hooked on something, like when I was in my 40s, I went to the Operating Engineers Training Center and operated a excavator, and it was like the clouds parted and the sun shone down and music played. It was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like I didn't ever, even think about that. So getting them to try some of the stuff at each level for what makes sense, but requiring some of that to be, there's no reason it can't be part of a math class to learn how to build a bike ramp or something, that is at their level and gets them hooked on something. But, we're all here trying to change the world and what we'd like to see.
I think that I just was at a South King County career fair and connected with some people, and every career counselor, guidance counselor, CTE teacher is like, please come talk to the students. They really, I think the big thing is like our career counselors and even like navigators that work with veterans and stuff, they just don't, it's so big to talk about the trades. There are so many things that you can talk about and they don't know. No one's taught them and they don't know what their resources are. So they go to what they know, right? And what's easy. And it's like, here, go talk to this military recruiter or go talk to a college. And so getting data into their hands, the trades books that need to be updated that a couple of us are working on getting those into the schools, letting them know about Constructor Career Initiative, Career Connect Washington, Construction Center of Excellence, and just know that you don't need to know all of it. If you're talking to a career navigator in a school, they don't need to know all of it, but they need to know how to find the resource to connect the students to. And then we can go in, our coordinators can go in and talk, but it is a lot. Like I went to one event and I have like 10 people inviting me to come talk to 75 students at a time. I can only imagine what that's like for our locals that might only have one or two people on kind of that team. It's really difficult for them to get out to all those classes. So just making sure that we know where our resources are and we can provide those is really helpful.
I think Kelly put the Beyond plan, apprenticeship is a pathway to a degree. It doesn't, it's not an either or. Most of the apprenticeship programs have agreements with the community technical colleges, and we have a process for apprentices to get degrees in our state through that, the majority of them. Now, I don't think it's perfect, and I'm working on myself trying to change process for us, but it is a conversation that if parents are worried, whether or not the student is, it's still something that you can say in the high school and beyond plan. These pathways are degree pathways. It should be able to count for that as well, and just raise the awareness about that. I think most people have so many. It's worse than if they don't know anything about apprenticeship. They think they know what it is, and oftentimes it's misinformation.
And Kelly, happy to work with you on that as well. I know, having been through the TPS version a couple of times with my kids, happy to have that conversation.
Well, thank you guys. There's been quite a few questions in the chat, which is great. We covered a few of them with that high school piece. Where is, I saw another question. Where did it go? Okay. Okay, question from Carlos. As a creative professional storyteller and filmmaker, I'm always looking to connect, collaborate, and partner with others to see how we can provide opportunities to diverse communities and people in the creative industries throughout Washington State. How does the work you are doing intersect and engage with the creative trades like film, television, documentary, and commercial production? Do you consider these creative industries as part of what you are doing and working on, and how do they impact the trades in general? Would also love to learn about how to support your efforts as it relates to the creative economy.
Great question, Carlos. A lot of the areas that we work in are with the building and construction trades, very specifically. I'm not familiar on the side if there are any registered apprenticeship programs through for filmmaking or anything like that. And I want to point out that registered is a key part of that conversation. Not everybody in Washington State can call themselves an apprenticeship program. There is a process that you, well, I guess you could, but there is a registered stamp of approval that means, you know, that it, like kind of like we've talked about, it's a job, it has a good pay, it has benefits, there's things to jump through on that. But organizations like, and I'm just going to say acronyms because I don't know what all the letters mean, and it's going to sound like I made them up too. IATSE and a couple of the other SAG, AFTRA, and other folks in that industry would know better than I think most of us here right now. And if you want to grab my contact information, I'd be happy to connect you and help do some research on that, Carlos.
There is a pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship program in California with IATSE. I think I'm also going to start sounding like I don't know anything because I don't. I just saw the presentation on it. And there is a woman in Seattle that was working on these pathways. I think part of the challenge is that some of those individuals are more in like contract. So like self-employed kind of. And so she was trying, I don't know. See, I'm going to start saying stuff I don't know, but I know of at least one program in California and can try to look that up if that's helpful.
I want to add that there's another intersectionality that I think is really important. And at least for our union folks, we are really gung-ho about making sure that when we outsource, or whether that be t-shirts, hats, you know, swag, letterhead, business cards, promotional videos for job sites or apprenticeships, like using folks that are in those unions that do that work is really, really important to us. I have a story. We have a media relations person for the Ironworkers, kind of more a district council area, but he's a member of SAG-AFTRA. He's kind of a union activist and a media relations expert. And he had me speak in a video against IRAPs several years ago. And I went to Macy's to get my makeup done for the video because I don't know how to do that kind of thing. And the woman who did my makeup is a member of IATSE and she's from California. And she was able to, I sent her a copy of that video. And so she was kind of able to promote her work, and we were able to promote, you know, unions and against IRAPs. And so there's a huge intersectionality and opportunity there for us to, like, in solidarity, work together in many ways. So that's just food for thought.
And also, Boys and Girls Club of King County has a youth force program, and they are working with kids of all ages, but typically at the teen centers, they have a program. I know the one at Federal Ways, Ron 3 Teen Center, they just did a music production program. So they are working with, especially like younger kids, to introduce them to all different trades. They partner with AJAC to do a manufacturing program, and they have several others. We have one over there that we're doing like pre-construction and building design with them, and it's all students that are learning multiple trades. So there is work being done there, but not enough.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate that. Yeah, and there's ever anything that we can directly do to help, for sure. IATSE, SAG, you know, I'm part of the Washington Film Leadership Council. So there's a lot of efforts there. And I guess it surprises people. It's kind of not at the forefront, right? Because I was talking to the president of the Carpenters Union earlier this year, and I was inviting him to a lunch and learn that we did on the creative industries. And he's like, "So you want me to just come, just kind of show my support?" I'm like, "No, this is directly impacting you. Sets have to be built. We're building studios. There's a lot of intersection there." And he's like, "You know what? That's right. I never thought about that." So that's a place where I devote a lot of my time. So like I said, if there's ever anything I can do to help and support what you got going on, please let me know. Thank you. And I'll definitely be reaching out to you.
Oh, I see a hand raised. Katie, what's your question?
I wasn't sure if we opened it for questions. I also do want to just ask, and I threw something in the chat there, and I did send out an email to connect with everybody, but I've been in the financial services field for about maybe 3.5, almost 4 years. And boy, I wish they would have taught this information in middle school and high school. My 11-year-old gets it when we talk about all types of financial products, whether it's foundational services like life insurance, or if it's investing, or if it's just understanding how a dollar compounds every day and why you should save. What types of programs do you offer to your communities for financial literacy? And, would you collaborate on having seminars being taught just on basic budgeting? How do you look at your benefits package? What things should you be looking to supplement outside of your job versus inside of your position? I mean, I always tell my clients, every bit of free money that you get from your work, take it. And every benefit that's offered, go ahead and jump in. But there are things that should be positioned outside, because if you leave that job or retire, those things go away, and they could be very vital to your family and setting a proper foundation. So how and what types of things do you guys, or would you guys collaborate on to help make sure that information gets to those young people that are entering the workforce, those that might already be in, and then, those that are looking at how do they supplement their retirement and provide for future benefits?
Great question, Katie. And I had an experience a couple of years ago. We were doing some community organizing, and we had the sheet metal workers, their apprentice program, released them to us to go knock doors in the community. And I remember this because there were 3 of them, and they were getting hours for community outreach towards their apprenticeship. And I think they were 2nd and 3rd year apprentices. And we had just had our training conversation, and they walked out, and one of the guys said, "Oh yeah, I bought a new truck." And I heard this slap, like Gilligan and the skipper. And I even saw the hat come off the head, and he hit him across the back of the head. He said, "Why'd you do that? Did you not listen to that lady that came into our classroom like 3 weeks ago and said you can't be spending money like that?" "Well, I had it in savings." And they just had this long conversation, which told me that there was somebody from a credit union, it was probably Qualstar is my guess, came into their program, and they use some of those training hours to talk about money management and how those things work. And obviously the message stuck to some of them. And I believe the end of the conversation is the younger guy was to return his car as soon as he had the opportunity, and he was going to make better choices in the future. So that's a story to illustrate that there are some programs that do have that. You also had
That's awesome.
The link in the chat is something that was developed with the trades for financial literacy. And then also understanding that some of the individuals might come from a scarcity mindset. They might have been raised where if you get money, you need to spend it because you only have it then. And so being able to talk through that and how to build wealth and how to, think about your retirement when you're 23. I mean, I can pretty much say this to my son every day, like, you don't care about it right now, but you're going to need to be thinking about it. So yes, financial literacy, I think, falls under the essential skills that most programs and pre-apprenticeship programs offer, including mental health and well-being. The construction industry is plagued by suicide, and being able to address that and change the stigma about talking about that as well. Digital skills, all of those are really critical to the foundation that the pre-apprenticeship programs build for their students.
Katie, I just want to say thank you for the work that you do, and for highlighting this topic, because and like folks have mentioned, there are some entities that do it. I'm not knowledgeable on who all touches on this important subject. Our credit union at our union hall comes into every single apprenticeship and gives a PowerPoint and an intentional talk, and then follows up with folks. I always tell apprentices when I'm mentoring them, nobody cares about your new truck, save your money. So that's always my piece of advice, because once they start getting these paychecks, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm rich. But saving is so important. And then the TRACK program, trades related apprenticeship coaching. For those of you who don't know, that program is in Mission Creek Correction Center for Women and Washington Correction Center for Women. Again, I'm a graduate of that program, and I hold a financial literacy certificate from Correctional Industries as a part of that program. And it was a huge piece of my learning how to be an apprentice and how to just be a successful person in life. I mean, down to our instructor, Steve Peterman, would give us mock paychecks at the end of every week, and we would have to budget everything. And he made it very realistic. He would be like, oh, you have children, you need to buy a Nintendo, like just threw wrenches in there. Oh, you have a flat tire, you have all these things. And so it really got you thinking about real world experiences, along with, credit information, loans and just budgeting in general. So thank you for the work that you do.
Absolutely. Mina, I sent you a connect, so in the email. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. This is great. I do have one question that kind of jumps off of that learning piece. Just I suppose more general than just focusing on financial literacy, which is super, super important. Oh my gosh. Is just about networking or mentorship opportunities, and how that can be used to provide support and guidance for people going into the trades, and how that can play a role.
We've touched a little bit about pre-apprenticeships, and some people don't even know what they are, but pre-apprenticeships were started almost 10 years ago, I believe, as a way to prepare people to enter their apprenticeship programs. So they do a lot of foundational construction skills. Usually they get first aid, CPR, forklift certification. Sometimes there's financial literacy. The programs can be a 6-week, they could be a boot camp, they could be a 3-week, even 12 weeks. Youth Build, somebody mentioned in the chat, is 6 months. And typically these are people who wouldn't normally have good opportunities to get into the trades. So being connected to them, so Palmer Pathways, PACT, Youth Build, a lot of high schools are starting to do it now, Federal Way in Auburn. I don't think Tacoma right now is registered state pre-apprenticeship, but there's a lot of program. What's that?
Working on it.
So there's a lot of pre-apprenticeship programs that you can support, go to their graduation, support the students that are in them, recommend people to go into them. A lot of them do have stipends. Somebody mentioned, getting cash. Some of the programs do have grants where the students actually get paid to go to the programs. It's not a ton of money, but it is something. And then they're also eligible for wraparound services. So there's other funding and grant sources to help provide tools and help with transportation and getting to programs. So yes, thank you, pre-apprenticeship programs. And then working with the work release programs, I think, is another great way to connect and help get candidates set up to successfully enter an apprenticeship program.
I think the holistic support is definitely something to be capitalized on. I don't want to just keep talking about track, but it's part of my ability to be successful is the bridge that was the gap that was bridged. I didn't just do a program and get released and then have to go and figure it out. I was already connected to that, my apprenticeship that I joined. I was connected to community partners that got me my first tool belt anew. and helped pay my dues and fees, and got me some gas cards and my first pair of Carhartt pants, and that, you know, if I needed it, I had access to support for, like, you know, being able to travel in the community if I was on probation, so that I could get to have access to a livable wage job. I had access to community partners that work with housing, that work with helping getting your license back if you have outstanding tickets, and all these other barriers. And so, you know, creating that network is just kind of so obvious to me how important that is to a person's success. It's not just like, you know, you have an actual bridge that gets you there, with all encompassing, really. So it's just really important.
I think the mentorship piece too is really critical, not just to talk about it in kind of an informal way, but many of the apprenticeship programs have formalized it with women committees, and finding individuals who have experienced what you've experienced, so you can talk about how they handled it or get ideas on how you want to handle it and get supported and coached through that. Encouraging people throughout their whole careers to find sponsors, somebody that when they're not in the room will talk about you in that room and help you advance and be successful in your career, and push you. So like even myself, I was here for a while, and one of the leadership individuals came up and said, don't you encourage women to you know, lean in and ask for a raise and all of that stuff? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, but you're not doing it yourself. He's like, why haven't you asked for a raise yet? And I'm like, oh God, no, I don't want to. And that was really like, it was because that person pushed me to do something uncomfortable. And so creating those and encouraging that kind of environment, and finding somebody that can help you do that, and be part of those women's committees, because people might have really good ideas of how to handle something that didn't even occur to. So I think for our apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships to support and create space for that to happen is important.
Oh, thank you guys. I'm thinking about kind of those with getting into the trades. I think that there's a lot that we can do at the individual level, but I'm also thinking about that kind of structural change that's needed, especially going back to conversation about barriers and breaking those down, especially for marginalized groups and marginalized communities. So what are some of the things that you could see that could be changing, specific policies or measures that could be implemented to provide that support for not just like recruiting people into the trades, but also that kind of retention and advancement for individuals who are from marginalized communities? And then I see a question from Cynthia, and I will get to you after that.
So I'm not an expert by any means, but lately, between work and my current college class, I've been doing a lot of intentional research on, you know, how we create that cultural change around, you know, once folks are in, what happens to them after that. And, you know, there's a lot of scholarly research out there on best practices for creating cultural change. And I can't speak to who's doing the work or kind of, you know, bringing those best practices based on research and putting them actually into practice. But I know that there are grants available out there for this work, and that, you know, it's not something that, you know, every time you join an apprenticeship or you go to a new job site, you're signing a piece of paper. It's a harassment and discrimination policy of some sort, right? And then once you leave that room and you go out to the job site, the piece of paper is the gap between office and HR policy and culture and those things that really matter, and, you know, out in the field. Like, everybody needs to be trained and held accountable, from superintendents all the way down to apprentices, project managers, project engineers, everybody needs to be trained on that same level. We can't have, just this huge gap and think that because you signed a piece of paper and checked a liability box, that's changing anything, because it's not. And so, like I said, not an expert, but it's something that I really want to be a part of changing based on the research I've done and the knowledge I now have. And it's very near and dear to me. So
one thing that I have been seeing with some of the locals is when you're an apprentice and you're going through your steps to get to journey level, then you can manage themselves very well and are very productive and efficient. And then all of a sudden they're a leader. But at what point were they taught leadership skills, and were they taught to motivate and be a really good mentor to others? And so some of the locals I have been hearing are starting to implement
left us with a cliffhanger.
Really great leaders.
Oh, I think Jody, you paused up there for a second. I think we missed the last bit of what you said.
I don't know where I cut out, but basically, just growing really great leaders, these journey people that are going to be our direct leaders of others, need to have really great mentorship skills and make the difference on the job site and for the experience for all. So I want to see that work continue. We need to be advocating for that to continue and to support and to offer trainings. I know ANU does a Rise Up program that is, I think, geared more towards contractors to make really great workplaces, but we've got to start directly with our members as well.
Because you don't have to be in a position of leadership to be a leader or a mentor.
Exactly.
And I think that folks need to know that you can be just working aside a sister or brother, and you can be a leader or a mentor to them in the right way.
I think another systemic and policy place where everybody could lean in is around the childcare crisis. The Apprenticeship Council has an official subcommittee for childcare, and I'm super excited that Minna is now the co-chair, vice chair, and pushing that work forward, because you can't pause for a second. This needs addressed at all levels, because there's no one solution. So there's the cost of it, but even worse is the ability for somebody in manufacturing, in healthcare, or in the building trades to find childcare open when they need it, based on all the different shifts and scheduling. We are opening a childcare center to be open on standard hours, but those are very difficult to operate. The business model does not work, and legislators need to really be informed of all of what this means. Like, if you're talking infrastructure, this has to be part of that conversation. And in the shift work, a new employee, they're usually younger. This is a problem that affects women more than men. So when we're talking about getting, more women into these careers, but it does affect everybody. Single parents, two-parent households, childcare is expensive. And so the hoops that people go through to try and piece together care for their children in, working these shift jobs, just in order to get far enough forward in their career that they can get normal hours, is mind-boggling. And there are a lot of policies that legislators can enforce, like funding non-standard hour care so that it is viable for childcare providers. Lots of things. We've already passed a lot of stuff to support apprentices longer with the subsidies, but it needs multiple strategies and multiple solutions on capacity and cost.
I sort of want to take the conversation a little bit different. And I see there's a lot of things about, like, my name's Cynthia Grant. I work at IUPAT. I'm a labor representative. And I actually, I'm a PLA CWA administrator. And so for the San Joaquin County area, What that means for us is like we have a lot of the preferred entry and the priority hire. There's a lot of support for pre-apprenticeship programs and the mentorship, the retention, all of this happening there. You go 40 minutes south to Tacoma, where I live, there's none, nothing. So I think my focus, I think, and Nate can attest to this, as when he came into the Pierce County Building Trades, was my focus was PLA, CWA projects. And that's, Nate put in project labor agreements. They have requirements and or goals. I think a lot of them are goals, but like 20% apprenticeship, or 15% women, or 15% minority, or whatever is chosen for these projects as far as percentages go. But without that, our contractors and the subcontractors who are doing the hiring are not required then, or even have a goal set for any of this, therefore not training up the new workforce. And I mean, overall, this country is going to have a workforce problem. As of 2023, every single baby boomer, and this is mathematically, every single baby boomer is now eligible for their Social Security. Whether they're taking it or not, they are all eligible. So now we have this workforce development issue, and that goes across the board, whether it's healthcare or education or whatever it is, but it's definitely prominent in the building trades. And so if we're not supporting legislation that puts these projects into place that requires and or at least makes goals for apprenticeship utilization, we'll just continue the same path and we'll be having these same conversations, down the road. So I think it's huge, especially in the Pierce County area, that we continue, in the Thurston County area, other places in Washington, that we push for these projects, labor agreements, and these community workforce agreements. Mr. Bontoc for PLA.
Cynthia, thank you. And those also outline who, not just the apprentices that are on the job site, but where they're hired out of. You can do what's called a priority hire with those tools. And Abigail from Metro Parks, we've talked about this a little bit, where you can prioritize certain zip codes that the dispatchers for those jobs have to call into those zip codes first, where statistically it's going to be a priority hire for a marginalized community member. And so those are things that these are tools that we have conversations with our electeds on, and staff and the bureaucracy, capital B, to put in place. Now, some organizations like the Tacoma School District is doing a pretty good job of this without it being formalized, but we're pushing them towards the project labor agreements and the community workforce agreements. It's baby steps, but we've made tremendous headway in the last 4 to 5 years on this in the numbers that they're putting up. And it's because they're being intentional with the conversations they're having with the employers on who's hired and on those job sites. And they're not just goals or nice rosy suggestions. These are expectations. City of Tacoma is also moving to having these conversations on apprenticeship utilizations on their projects. And they're looking at, what does that workforce look like, and how can we achieve those goals? How can we put our citizens to work using our taxpayer money to enrich our community and to build a future workforce? It's a huge lift, and I'm excited to be doing some of this work with Cynthia and others in our community.
Yeah, I'll just dovetail real quick. I just came from the Seattle School District PAC meeting, which is all the contractors and the City of Seattle schools, and some of the priority hire. And for some of you that don't understand what that means, their focus right now for the City of Seattle School District, all these projects, is hiring kids directly that are either did go to school in the City of Seattle, or their children go to schools in the City of Seattle. And so, putting those goals in then requires, Pierce County or different counties, or, maybe it's a state deal, that those folks that went to school in that area, live in that area, or currently live in that area, are being hired to do the work in that area. Thanks, Nate, for everything you do. Appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I want to kind of take this time to open it up for Q&A. For anybody who has questions, you can ask it now, or you can put it in the chat. Either works. I know we've gotten quite a few questions in the chat that I think we've kind of answered throughout, but I just want to take time to open up that space, see what people are curious about, what they want to learn more about. Oh,
I see one from Carlos.
Oh, yes. Carlos and then Tamar.
Thank you, Chloe. So the main question is, where do you see the trades going with emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, and robotics? Does it look promising or crazy?
I know that the building trades probably have every intention of maintaining ownership of their craft, even if new technology is introduced. There's no reason why, journey workers and apprentices can't be trained in a new technological application of the work that they've been doing for years and years and years, and that they are best trained in for not just safety, but quality of craftsmanship, right? So that's all I have to say about that.
I've been seeing.
Go ahead, Jody.
Okay, I've been seeing tons of mobile trailers that they are taking out to do trainings on. The equipment operators have some AI technology, and they're a big hit at like Dozer Days in Puyallup. They have lines out the door of kids wanting to use their virtual training and get to drive the big equipment virtually. I see a lot of pre-apprenticeships are starting to invest. There's a concern with, bringing power tools in and letting miners work with power tools, but they have virtual reality glasses and training programs that you can actually be using a saw and I think welding, and there's a lot of different things that you can touch and feel and kind of practice on before actually having to touch the real equipment. And the kids are geeking out on it. Like, they absolutely love it. And it is giving us opportunity to inspire the younger generation to enter the trades, because they get to experience it without kind of the pressure of like, oh my gosh, I'm actually operating a really potentially dangerous piece of equipment. And it allows us to get some of that equipment into schools that we wouldn't be able to bring out. So I see a lot going on with AI and virtual reality as training tools.
And I think it's coming. Like it happens whether we want it to or not. So how do we bend it to our will and in favor of our workers? So it might reduce the amount of mundane tasks that can cause long-term injuries, and also open them up for the ability to skill up in a new, equipment or technology. I heard a futurist say that the jobs in this next iteration, 50% of your time will be learning a new skill, a new piece of equipment or technology. So, driving home the lifelong learning aspect, and how registered apprenticeship and these careers are the awesome way for that to happen, is something that, how we just kind of characterize it. AI, as long as we've got safety and ethical frameworks around it. I know it's a scary new world, but it also, I think, opens up a lot of opportunity. I've used it myself, and it's super helpful. So how do we give that as a tool, but teach people how to use it ethically, and all of the safeguards around it? It can be, really change the ability to use our brains in other ways and let it take the stupid stuff.
And I want to point out, though, we've seen technologies changing rapidly over the last 47 years, to the point that our workforce is the most productive workforce in the history of probably the world. I'm going to say the world. But we've seen our effective wages be stagnant for those same 47 years. And part of the challenge is to make sure that we're able to secure that difference and make sure that those workers that use these technologies are being paid very well. An example is the Longshore, when they went to container shipping. Their whole deal there was that they would be the best paid blue collar workers on all the coasts. They were not going to let the companies take those those earnings just purely as profits. They needed to share those with the folks that are actually making it happen. So that's one of our big challenges there, to continue to make these good career pathways to good jobs and good lives where you can work 35 hours a week and be able to afford to live here in our community.
Also, in the building trades, there is a lot of advancement in technology and robotics, and especially in surveying, doing construction layouts. We have like little robots that run around the job site and can mark out grid lines for accuracy, for checking levelness, a lot of Revit 3D modeling to do clash detection. So there is a lot going on kind of in the pre-construction world, and certain trades are really getting behind that to make sure that we're using the technology and the software that's available to us to ensure efficient building and not having as many change orders, not making as many mistakes, offering better quality control. And so there is a lot of training opportunities and jobs in those areas as well.
Okay, thank you. I see Tamar has his hand raised.
What the? Oh, okay. There we go. There we go. I had to get off mute. I had to get off mute. Shauna tried to call me out earlier. It's cool though. I get you back. I get you back. A few things that stood out for me. First, thank you guys so much, man. So much knowledge. We love bringing just individuals in that can really just have a candid conversation with us. And one of the things that really stood out was longevity doesn't make you a leader. And I think in the trades, that's where it goes, and meaning you talked about it a little bit, and where because you've gone through the apprenticeship, you've journeyed out. Now all of a sudden you're a leader and you're responsible for leading everyone else that's coming behind you, but you don't understand what that even looks like yourself. And then we jump into the they and them, and this is tradition. You've they put their time in, so they get to do the things that you don't get to do. And we talk about, well, now you're talking to the next generation of leaders that at some point they're going to say the same thing. Well, I put my time in, so I don't have to do some of the things that you're doing, rather than setting the expectation of this is what it actually looks like. And I think sometimes we lose sight as far as it's not just the trades that are in community. It's the city has different trades, the county has different trades and apprenticeships and what those things look like. And a lot of what we see in community, it happens in those spaces as well, as far as in the barriers that are set and the discrimination that goes on. But those areas are so much harder to hold someone accountable because of the policies that are in place that actually protect those individuals of, well, we have to do this and we have to take 37 years to get rid of this person, and, and all those things. It's like I was in the trades for 15 years. I worked at the city. I understood what, even being an adult, what discrimination looked like. And it's happening in your own city, and what does that look like for the young adults that are coming behind us, and the kids coming behind us? I know, Nate, you were talking about us getting in earlier to talk to young adults and saying, hey, these are great opportunities. But we also, it's the thought around, oh, if you go into the trades, and that means you weren't eligible to go to college, or, you missed the step, not realizing, going into the trades is a better route. I believe in education, but with a purpose. And, going into the trades, we know what that looks like. You make more than most of the people that taught you what real life really looked like because of what you were able to do and how you're able to be trained. And I love the trades. I really do, because it's something that no one can take away regardless of what it is. When you learn to work with your hands, you can't take that from me. Regardless if I go back to school or not, you can't take that from me. And, thinking about the marginalized communities, thinking about the young adults of color that are coming behind us. We push trades, absolutely, but just a thought for you guys is when we're wanting to push the trades and maybe reevaluating what the needs are and where those barriers are. I know when you go into the union hall, and some don't even know what that looks like. And I was talking to one guy who's like, oh, well, we lost people because they didn't know about the 5x7 card, that they had to have a copy of this and a copy of their license. So we didn't even look at the application. It's like, but did they know about it? Well, they should. Well, you know about it because generationally, your family has known about that. But for those that don't have that insight to what you really need to get there, we lose right off the jump, you know. So even those simple things and having those conversations or going into the wait list, you know, 150 people down the line. You know, we talk about these pre-apprenticeship programs and, you know, maybe even partnering with some of the actual, you know, unions and saying, okay, I want you to help me build this pre-apprenticeship program with the respects of if it's built off of your knowledge and your expectations, what happens after they graduate from this pre-apprenticeship program? Well, we'll consider them. Well, why are you considering an individual if you help build the pre-apprenticeship program for your pipeline? You told me you were looking for these specific individuals. I worked with you to build the program to find those specific individuals, and then they're still on a wait list. I mean, that just takes people away right off the jump. Like, you called me 3 years later. You know, I don't have time. Now I'm raising my family. Now I'm feeding my family. So what could that look like? Is there a policy that can change? Is there, you know, different agreements that could happen as far as in these pre-apprenticeships truly being able to funnel into the real life action and what it looks like because of the collaboration between the unions and the pre-apprenticeships that are being built?
I'm probably not the expert to speak to this, maybe Nate, but I think articulation agreements are a big opportunity for that bridge tomorrow for the pre-apprenticeship students graduating and having either preferred entry or direct entry into a trade. And what do those look like? What is the verbiage? What is that agreement? Because it can be pretty broad on what it is. It might be a guaranteed interview. It might be guaranteed placement, depending on, you know, what the local's comfortable with. So I think there's a lot of discussion there and opportunity there. It is a requirement for a pre-apprenticeship to be certified or to get their recertification to have some of them. I think 2 right now, if I'm correct, but I think that's an opportunity area to bridge that path for graduates.
Jody's going to be the expert on entry. I'm just going to repeat is that it needs to start with a job, and that's up to our owners right now in the space of public entities doing capital projects to see to it that they have those apprenticeship utilization requirements, not suggestions. We are coming out of a couple of decades where it was just there were some municipalities in our community where a contractor could look at the list of how much their fine would be. They would write a check for 10 grand and say, we're not going to do any local hire or apprenticeship utilization on this. Here's the fine. They would pay that up front as they were basically they'd finish signing the contract. And then they would hand them a check to say, hey, we're not going to do this. So here's what that is. So we need to start with having those jobs. And state legislation that passed that put a 15% apprenticeship utilization requirement for municipalities from water districts all the way on up, that's a start. And so we can then have the space to put those apprentices into jobs, which is one of the reasons we've had those 3-year wait lists in the past. Is it going to be perfect with this? No, but it's going to move the ball forward on this. And I'm excited that we're seeing that here in Tacoma with the schools. We're going to see that at the county level over the next couple of years. And then the Build Back Better agenda is helping to push that forward with federal projects as well. So
I think also, like, 100% hear you, Tamar, and it can be very frustrating trying to connect that pre-apprentice into, especially in manufacturing where it's employer hire. We don't get the option of dispatching them out. The employers have to hire them and then say, sure, it's an apprentice. But I think we also, knowing the cyclical nature of construction, sometimes we have recession, sometimes manufacturing's booming, you know, some industries kind of will be up and down. Being able to give the student the ability to articulate the skill sets that they're learning that are transferable from manufacturing into the building trades, because those thoughts don't happen automatically. It's not like someone's like, oh, well, I know since I worked on this machine, I could go run, you know, an excavator or whatever. So helping them recognize that they're sellable in multiple and, you know, industries, and finding partnerships. So we located our welding booths at a news training center, and we're building out welding pre-apprenticeship that those students then can take into maritime, building trades or manufacturing. And it opens up, lots of opportunities for them to find a fit and get exposed to these occupations that do have similar, kind of skills needed. So, helping them be able to identify and speak to those, I think, is valuable too.
Now I can't speak for everybody, but I know that a lot of folks do have preferred entry pathways for certain populations of people that, historically are underrepresented in the building trades. I know it's a priority for me. And just to touch on, the only caveat with that is that we don't ever want to sell someone a dream. So we don't want to bring folks in. So like if there's a long waiting period, we don't want to bring someone in and not have a job for them. That's not fair to anybody, because you're asking them to stop working, and come to like a week-long orientation or a 4-week pre-apprenticeship or what have you, and then just turn around and not have a job. And that's just not fair to anybody. And like Shayna said, we have our ups and downs, but those transferable skills are really important to capitalize on, because, if it doesn't work out in one trade or one craft, or there are there's like work opportunity barriers, like maybe work is really, really slow, you do have transferable skills that you can take. If you can pull a tape measure, you can work in anywhere, because especially in these industries, you're learning while you're working. You're not expected to come knock on, an apprenticeship's door and already have journey level skill, right? You're there to learn and make money at the same time. And so opening people's minds to that is really important. So thank you for saying that. I think it was Nathan, Shayna.
Thank you, guys.
Gosh, this is great. Thank you. Well, we're coming up on time here. I don't want to keep anybody after too long, but thank you so much. I just see one last question in the chat. Who am I calling after this meeting to get my kiddo into electrician/lineman and or welding?
I have all the contacts for you, and Jody does too. I beat you to it, Jody. Me or Jody?
I do too.
And Nate.
Everybody. It's everybody. The answer is everybody.
We work together. That's what makes it good. We all work together.
So I do want to say something really quick about, Mina kind of touched on it, that we want to give realistic expectations. I do want to say that the electricians probably are bringing on about 15 to 20 people a year. They do have a lot of applications, and they do have some out of work list. So it depends kind of what part of electricians they want to go into. And then welding could be like so many trades. So a lot of trades do welding. So that's a very typical thing that we're running into when people say, well, this is what I want to do. Well, there might be multiples that you could go into, or you might want to go into one that's not bringing people on. So having conversation about skills and interests and what they want to see. And like Shayna said, like if they're scared of heights, then okay, we're not going to talk about ironworking or something, because you're going to be up high. So it can be a ton of information, and that's kind of why we're here, to help navigate that and to explore the different opportunities and find the best fit with realistic expectations.
I love it. And real quick, before everyone jumps off, and I'll let Chloe shut it down, one of the notes that I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of is that Workforce Central Small Business Solutions, or Business Solutions team, has just released their new grant for growing small minority-owned businesses. This is a great opportunity to be able to support employee development with the maximum grant award of $15,000, as well as asset purchases that lead to new hires and business sustainability. Also, a maximum of $15,000 as well. So, if that is something that you may know, a small business of minority Indigenous, Hispanic, and Black-owned businesses, please definitely reach out. I'll make sure that Chloe can share this in the chat with you guys to share with your friends, your partners, and everyone else. But I just want to make sure that you guys know in this group that that is something available. So if you know any small businesses that may benefit from this opportunity, please look in the chat. Chloe will get that to you guys. But we're doing a lot of things out here right now. So definitely appreciate you guys sharing that out.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Tamara. Get out the. Oh, sorry. That's awesome. Sorry. I'm happy to share that with folks. Thank you, Tamara.
Yeah, we have the link and the flyer both in the chat now. So we've got that available. And I'm going to be sending out an email after the meeting with all of the information that has been shared in the chat. That's going to be all going out. So if you have any links or like email contacts, I'm going to have that in there so you don't miss anything. But again, thank you so much for our panelists for being a part of today's meeting, and all of our task force members and attendees for joining, both new and old members. Thank you for being a part of the discussion today and being here to learn and grow. So thank you all so much for joining us today.
Hey, y'all ain't got to be on the panel to come back either. Come on back. We got all types of stuff to talk about.
Yes, we've always got stuff going on, so please come back.
You have my email now, so I'll look for my invites.
Yes. Thank you for
so
the invitation. Yeah. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. You're amazing.